Why, hello everyone. Can you guys see me? Can you hear me? What is up? Hope! First person this time. Good job. Hey Wing Chun, how's it going? Hey Nikki, glad you could join. What's up, Sunny? Christina, I'm glad you're here. Bigfoot, how's it going, buddy? How many more chapters? It is coming to an end. We're at chapter 44. And the last chapter is 50. All right. Getting to it. Getting to it. Oh. Small screen. Thanks, Nikki. You're not too bad? Good. I am doing pretty good. All right. I think we're just gonna get to it today. Oh, you know what? All right. Let's see how my typing is. I wanted to do this every day, but hasn't happened. No. 1 sec. Doot. Bloop. Okay. All right. Let's see how fast. I think my max was 103. Oh no. All right. Start over. $90. All right. Wait, not repeated. Okay. Why? Why? Stop. Okay. Ah! Things from we. Oh. There should be a Hello Fresh that only delivers alcohol and snacks. Well, there's one that delivers alcohol. It's called tipsy.com, okay? Use promo code LINFAMY. SMR. Oh, you're binge watching from the beginning? Awesome. It's a good story. All right, I can do this. How did I get 103 last time? I'm out of practice. I'm also using a different keyboard. Okay, this is my mobile keyboard, so maybe that's why. Ah! All right, one more time. No. Ah, okay. I think 91 is the best we're gonna do today. All right. Anyways, let's go back. We do have snacks today. This is another homemade snack. Homemade Chinese snack. Hold on. Check it out. Where's the camera? Well, check it out. Does that look good? Okay. Let me try it. I'll taste some nuts. It's not too sweet. It's sweet, but not too sweet, which is great. It's a Chinese brownie. Oh. Medium sweetness. Not even medium. It's like light sweetness, which is pretty good. I don't like it too sweet. This is I'm gonna say 7 out of 10. Okay. 7 out of 10. Wait, ooh. I'm tasting a little bit something else. I don't think it's supposed to be there. Is it a magic brownie? Well, we're gonna find out. How long do we have? Like an hour and a half? Well, I'm gonna find out if it's spiked with something. All right. I don't feel like the quiz today, guys. So we're just gonna get into it. All right. We're at chapter 44. Halfway through chapter 44, actually. There are 50 chapters, so we're almost done. All right. So what happened last time? So last time, if you remember, Jiumozu, he sneak attacked Duan Yu. Okay. Then Duan Yu faints. But then when he wakes up in a house, and Zhongling is there. Okay. You remember, Zhongling is the girl from the very beginning of the story who has the pet Martin. And she really likes Duan Yu. and she's been looking for him for a long time. Now, he knows that she likes him, and he doesn't have the heart to tell her that he's her half brother. Right? So he's kind of waffling back and forth, but he doesn't tell her. Now, and then Azu, she arrives with Yo Tanju. Okay, Yo Tanju has Azu on his back. She's blind, so she's been going around. She's going around on Yo Tanju's back, pointing at things that she doesn't like. And she tells him to attack Duan Yu and Zhongling. She wants to poke out Zhongling's eyeballs because Yo Tanju mentioned that her eyes were sparkling or something. So Azu, being her evil self, Xiao Feng, he comes to save the day. Azu, she gets mad, and she tries to leave. She bumps into a wall because she's blind, and she's all pissed. She destroys a sewing loom, and then now Xiao Feng, he gets mad, and he says that that's the sewing loom of his adoptive mother. So this is the house that Xiao Feng grew up in. Okay, and it seems to be that maybe Xiao Feng rescued Duan Yu and put him in this house. Yeah. And that's it. I think that's where we stopped. Yep, he gets really mad because of the sewing loom. How dare she? Okay. Am I echoing, guys? Is there a bit of an echo? Or is there only an echo when I yell and I speak really loud? Okay, you ready? This is chapter 44, part 2. All right, so Xiao Fang says the sewing loom was my godmother's. Everyone was shocked. Xiao Fang grasped the small wooden tiger in his palm, gazing into the distance. In the yellow lamplight, his large shadow loomed on the clay wall. He gently rubbed the wooden tiger's back with his index and middle fingers, a tender expression on his face, and said, "This was carved for me by my godfather when I was 5. Godfather. I used to call him father then. Carved it by the light of this very lamp. Mother was sewing. I sat beside father's leg, watching the form of the tiger's ear appearing, then the nose. I was delighted." Duan Yu asked, "Elder brother, was it you who brought me to this place?" Xiao Feng nodded and replied, "Yes." While the nameless elderly monk had been reciting scripture to the group, Jiumozu suddenly struck and injured Duan Yu. The nameless monk waved his sleeve and shoved Jiumozu out, where he rapidly turned and fled down the mountain. Oh, okay, that's it. On seeing that Duan Yu had suffered a heavy injury, Xiao Feng had given Duan Yu special medication, as he was anxious to help him. Jiumozu's blazing saber skill was extremely dangerous. Had Duan Yu's internal energy not been extremely dense and strong, he would have died on the spot after his vitals had been struck. Xiao Feng saw that the mountain's weather was harsh, and it would be bad for Duan Yu to endure the strong winds with his severe injury. He carried Duan Yu to his childhood home, placing Duan Yu on the bed stove. Immediately turning, he was about to meet up with his father as well as the 18 Khitan warriors, when he was surprised to find that someone had been living in the empty house these few days, and it was an old acquaintance of Duan Yu's. He returned to the Shaolin Temple to find that the situation had calmed down. Xiao Yuanshen and Mu Rongbo had decided to become Shaolin monks under the guidance of the nameless monk. Oh, so these two decide to become monks. Hey, good night, Greek. Not only had they resolved their enmity, they had even become senior and junior disciples. Xiao Yuanshen had not spread the knowledge of Shaolin's martial arts to the country of Liao. The heroes of the Central Plains were relieved and reassured. During Xiao Feng's disappearance, the 18 Khitan warriors were unable to cause any harm under the direction of the Lingjiu Palace. The various heroes saw that the matter had been settled and dispersed from the mountain. Xiao Feng had no wish to meet others and begin the struggles anew. He hid in a cave beside the mountain until night, before going to the entrance door requesting to meet his father. The monk in charge of handling guests for Shaolin Temple went in to report. Returning after a time, he said, "Elder Xiao has become a monk in this temple. He wishes me to inform you that he has buried his grievances and his heart is now filled with peace and joy. He intends to devote himself to scripture study from now on. When he was a Liao official, he only hoped for peace between Liao and Song. If the Liao Emperor has the intention of invading, please dissuade him to protect the millions of lives in the two countries." Xiao Feng replied, "Yes." His heart was awash in sorrow, and he wondered, "Father is getting old. If he does not wish to see me today, I fear that I will not get to see him again." He thought, "I have been charged by the Liao Emperor with the heavy task of subduing the south. If Great Song wants to invade Liao, I am a general and will have to defend the north. However, if the Emperor wants to kill the Song soldiers, I will have to dissuade him." What's up, rude noise? Welcome back. Oh, so Daddy doesn't want to see him? He heard footsteps whilst he was deep in thought. 7 or 8 eminent monks, including Xunshan and Dao Qing, came out of the temple along with Zhu Liuxing, the Indian monk, and the other foreign monks. Monks Xuanji and Xuansheng had their hands clasped in the Buddhist greeting. Bo Liuxing, stood behind Xuanji as they exchanged courtesies. Zhu Liuxing said, "Junior, I will be heading to the west. When we part today, we will be separated by thousands of miles. Who knows when we will meet again? You are determined not to return home to Tianzhu. Do you want to spend your remaining days in the Central Plains?" He spoke in Chinese to his junior disciple to avoid any misunderstanding or suspicion from the Shaolin monks. Bo Liuxing laughed lightly and said, "Senior brother, why do you keep asking me this? Tianzhu and the Central Plains are one and the same. Bodhidharma came to the east as well." Zhu Liuxing was shaken and said, "Junior's words have enlightened me. You aren't my junior, but my teacher." Wu Liuxing laughed and said, "When following the Dharma, understanding may come early or late. It is fine whether late or early, just to achieve understanding." The two shared a laugh. Xiao Feng remained inconspicuous at the side and waited until the Reverends Xunshan, Daoqing, Zhu Liuxing had gone down the mountain before slowly following behind. He had only gone a few steps when another person came out from the temple. It was Suzhu. He saw Xiao Feng and was elated, rushing over and saying, "Elder brother, I was looking all over for you. I heard that third brother was heavily injured. How is he?" Xiao Feng replied, Fine, fine. The two went off together. Before they had gone a short distance, the four sword sisters came out from the forest to follow Suju. What's up, Katie? Nice of you to join. Suju said that the Lingjiu Palace maidens, as well as the folk of the 72 islands and 36 caves, had already left the mountain with the 18 Khitan warriors, and he believed that there would not be any reckless conflict with the Central Plain warriors. Xiao Feng felt that this was praiseworthy and thought, this sworn brother of mine is really amazing. It was my second brother who became sworn siblings with him, who knew that he would be such a great help to me. Suju then mentioned that Ding Chunqiu had been placed in the care of the Shaolin Temple's medical wing. The Shaolin monks would give him the Lingjiu Palace medication twice yearly during the Dragon Boat and Double Nine festivals to alleviate the agony he felt from the life and death talisman. His life and death was in the hands of others, and he dared not to do evil. Xiao Feng gave a hearty laugh and said, Second brother, you have eliminated a great evil from the martial world. This Ding Chunqiu will be under Buddhist influence, but whether it will draw him away from his evil ways remains to be seen. Suju was a little upset and said, I wish to become a monk again in the Shaolin Temple. However, I was chased away by the senior masters. This Ding Chunqiu is extremely wicked and has done many evil deeds, and yet he can remain in Shaolin Temple to meditate. Why is there such a double standard in our treatments? Xiao Feng smiled and said, Second brother, you envy old freak Ding, but he envies you 1,000 times more. You are the master of the Lingjiu Palace and leading the 36 cave masters as well as the 72 island masters. With your great fame shaking the heavens, what's not to like? Suju shook his head and said, Lingjiu Palace is all women. It's really awkward being a little monk and not knowing what to do with myself. Xiao Feng laughed gustily and said, You mean you're still a little monk? Suju said, Those sycophantic lackeys of the Xingxiu sect have turned to pestering me. I have no idea how to deal with them. Xiao Feng replied, These people were likely not originally this way. Under the influence of the Xingxiu elder freak, they had not learned to be this way. They would likely not have been able to survive. Second brother, just treat them more strictly, and if they refuse to change, then throw them out. Suju thought about his parents acknowledging each other in a single day and then dying together. How tragic. He could not help but tear up. Yeah, I feel really bad for Suju. Xiao Feng said consolingly, Second brother, unfortunate happenings are common everywhere. When I was expelled by the Beggars clan, the heroes of the world all treated me with much enmity, and I was extremely upset. But after some time, things got better. You hope Suju finds his dream girl in this chapter? Me too, Sunny. Me too. He's got to find her at some point. He needs some joy in his life. Suju replied, Right. Tathagata Buddha once preached scripture on the Lingjiu mountain of Rajgir. The word Lingjiu has its origins in Buddhism. Perhaps one day I will turn to the Lingjiu palace and to the Lingjiu temple and ask the women, both old and young, to be nuns. Alright guys. Let's take a 5-minute break. I will be right back, okay? Alright. And we're back. Yep. The brownies were starting to take effect. I've been speaking a lot slower and trailing off. What do you mean? You think I'm gonna fall asleep? during the stream. All right, where were we? All right. Xiaofeng bellowed with laughter and said, "Ha ha ha ha! A monk temple filled with nuns. That will truly be an oddity." Both chatted, and as they arrived at Qiao Shanhuai house, the house of Qiao, they came across You Tanzhi just about to dig out Zhongling's eyes, and it was fortunate that they stopped him in the nick of time. Duan Yu asked, "Elder brother and second brother, have you seen my father?" Xiaofeng replied, "Not afterwards." Suju said, "The heroes were fighting chaotically, and I could not pay my respects to uncle. Truly disrespectful." Duan Yu replied, "Second brother, no need to be polite. That Duan Jianqing is a great enemy of my family, and I am afraid that he would cause trouble for my father." Xiaofeng replied, "This matter needs to be dealt with. Let me go and seek uncle Duan Zhengchun out." Azu cut in. "You keep talking about elder uncle and little uncle. Why don't you address him as father-in-law?" Xiaofeng sighed. "This is something I will hate myself for the rest of my life for. What else is there to say?" He stood up and left the room. At this time, Plum Sword carried in a bowl of chicken broth and was entering the room to serve it to Duan Yu. When she heard their discussion, she said, "Hero Xiao, you don't need to ride off personally to search. Your lowly servant will spread master's orders, and Lingjiu Palace will search everywhere. If Duan Yanqing is spotted to be doing evil, we will set off smoke signals, and we can go in and capture him. What do you think?" Xiaofeng joyfully said, "Great! Those under Lingjiu Palace number in the thousands. If they split up the work, it will be far better than the few of us going out to look." Plum Sword went off to give the instructions for the search. Lingjiu Palace had a very efficient communications network. Once Suju returned to the house of Qiao, the Xuantian section women had already obtained information. Under Fu Minyi's leadership, they rushed to the vicinity and secretly increased security. Duan Yu was reassured and then started to think about Wang Yuyan, thinking, "She hates me deeply. I fear that she will ignore me in the future." He could not help but sigh a few times over his strong yearning. Zhongling was concerned and asked, "Does your wound hurt?" Duan Yu replied, "Not much." Azu said, "Miss Zhong, although you like my little elder brother, you do not understand his heart. I see your confused thoughts. The future is uncertain." Zhongling replied, "I wasn't talking to you. Who asked you to interrupt?" Azu laughed. "It's irrelevant whether I interrupt or not. I only fear that there is a lady 10 times more beautiful than you are, 10 times more devoted and caring, who may interfere. My brother would then have no place for you in my heart. Why he sighs, don't you know? Sighing means that his heart is unfulfilled. You are contented to be with my brother, and do not sigh. My brother's frequent sighing, certainly, it is because of another lady." Azu could not dig out Zhongling's eyes, so she used her words to pierce her, and wanted her to be miserable. That gave herself cheer. Zhongling, upon hearing this, was angry and upset. However, she felt that Azu had a point, and she became gloomy. When she had been younger, she had always been innocent and lively. Although she had been fond of Duan Yu, it was not a very deep desire, just that she felt that her heart had no words to describe the comfort and joy she felt being with him. Duan Yu's heart being with someone else and not bothering too much about her was rather saddening. Although she was a little upset, there was nothing much to be done about it. Duan Yu hurriedly said, Zhong, younger sister Ling, don't listen to Azu's blind words." Zhongling, on hearing Duan Yu address her as younger sister Ling and no longer Miss Zhong, felt that it was a more intimate form of address and was cheered, oh no, saying, "She loves to hurt others with her words. I don't care about it." Azu was furious. After she had become blind, she hated others mentioning the word blind. Duan Yu had meant to say that she was speaking rashly or without logic, but he managed to use the word blind twice. She said, "Brother, do you actually like Miss Wang more or Miss Zheng more? Miss Wang has already arranged with me to meet on the morrow. I will tell her the words you speak with your own mouth." Duan Yu, upon hearing that, sat up and hurriedly asked, "You arranged to meet with Miss Wang? When and where? What are you discussing?" On seeing his desperate expression, Zhongling knew that regardless of what he said, Miss Wang was far more important to Duan Yu than herself. She was easygoing and straightforward in character. She had been upset earlier, but it had dulled greatly by now. She would be very upset if she were in Wang Yuyan's place, but knew that her beloved's heart was not with herself. Mu Wanqing had gone straight for Duan Yu. Azu must be planning some wickedness towards Wang Yuyan. Despite all her thoughts, Zhongling said, "Don't get up. Be careful or your wound may open up and bleed again." Suju was watching the three of them from the side and pondered. "Miss Zhong is so devoted to third brother. It's unlikely that she is my dream maiden. Otherwise, how would she be so indifferent when she heard my voice?" However, he thought about it a little more. That's not right. The ladies like Elder Tong Lao, Li Chu Shui, as well as Jade Granny, Stone Ant, and Aunt Fu are complicated and think very differently from men. Perhaps Miss Zhong is really my dream maiden, and she recognized me from the start. However, she deliberately did not show any recognition to keep me in the dark. Duan Yu kept questioning Azu as to when she was meeting Wang Yuyan the next day. Azu saw his anxiety and wondered how to mess with him, thinking that she could obtain some benefits. Her answers were all perfunctory. Orchid Sword returned to report and said that the Xuantian section had already sent out word and requested Duan Yu to be at ease. Duan Yu said, "Many thanks, sisters, for your effort. I am extremely grateful." Orchid Sword saw that he carried himself like a Dali prince, but without any trace of haughtiness. She thought well of him, and on hearing him ask Azu again about the next day, she could not stand but cut in. "Master Duan, your sister is only playing a joke on you, but you take it so seriously." Duan Yu said, "How do you know that she is playing a joke on me?" Orchid Sword laughed and said, "If I explain, Miss Duan," referring to Azu, "would blame me for it, and I do not know if Master allows it." Duan Yu hurriedly said to Suju, "Second brother, please ask her to speak." Suju nodded and said to Orchid Sword, "Third brother and I are close. You need not hide anything." Orchid Sword said, "Earlier on, we saw Master Murong's group going down Mount Shao and heard them discussing whether to head to Western Shia. Miss Wang followed her cousin in the group. They must be tens of li away by now. How could she possibly meet Miss Duan tomorrow?" You guys want to click on that ad? Wow. Is it really that interesting? Let's see. Yep, that is a spider. Ooh. Okay. All right, stop. It's a spider bait. Ooh. Oh, I guess it works. Wow. Wow, guys. Buy it right away. It's lifelike. Soft rubber body. It has quality hooks. Is it just me, or like, am I seeing Temu ads everywhere? They're all over the place. Azur shrieked. Stinking wretch! You know that I would blame you, and you persisted in speaking. Your 4 sisters are a bunch of blabbermouths. Your master's family is speaking, and you have no respect to cut in like that. There was a sudden voice from outside the window. Miss Duan, why do you scold my sister? Lingjiu Palace's divine farmer department's key is kept by myself, don't you know? Master wants to find the method to heal your eyes, and the only way is to go to the Shen-Nong department to find the relevant books. The one who spoke was Bamboo Sword. Azu was taken aback and thought, I'm afraid that what this wretch says is true. Before this idiotic Tsuju monk heals my eyes, I cannot offend the servant girls by his side. Should they do anything such as changing the medications, my eye treatment will go wrong. Learn what I can do. She remained silent. Duanyu asked Orchid Sword, Many thanks, sister, for your information. They went to Western Shia? Whatever for? Orchid Sword said, I didn't hear them say the reason. Suju said, Third brother, I know of this matter. I heard Mr. Gong Yugan tell the Beggars Clan elder that along the way. They had met a Beggars Clan member returning to the Central Plains from Western Shia, carrying a written proclamation by the king of Western Shia, saying that the princess is of marriageable age and would be looking for a suitor during the Mid-Autumn Festival in the 8th month. Western Shia would be inviting all the best heroes in the world to perform their skills. Should they pass the king's selection, they would become the prince consort. What? The audio is bad? Okay. It's okay on your end? I think that was just that's a temporary thing. I think it should be good now. I saw some notification. My OBS was acting up. It keeps buffering. Maybe refresh the page. Yeah. Plum Sword could not help but speak up. Master, why do you not go to Western Shia and give it a try? As long as Hero Xiao and Master Duan do not compete with you, becoming the Western Shia Prince Consort would be a piece of cake. My IBS? No! My OBS. Not IBS. My IBS was acting up. That's why it buffers. Yeah. The plum, orchid, bamboo, and chrysanthemum sword sisters were beautiful and bright. Tong Lao, the child elder, had treated them very well, like her own children. Although they were master and servant in name, they were actually more like grandparent and grandchildren. It was only that Tong Lao was strict and ruled with an iron fist. The 4 sisters did not dare to be too audacious. Suju, however, was easygoing in his interactions with them. He did not have the strict demeanor of a master, and treated them with courtesy and respect. Hence, the 4 sisters did and spoke as they pleased, without any reservation. Suju shook his head and said, I won't go. I'm a monk. He once again spoke the words of being a monk, but swallowed the very last word. The 4 sisters laughed out loud together at the same time. Suju blushed and turned to secretly glance at Zhongling. He only saw her devotedly gazing at Duanyu with no heed for his words. His heart suddenly wavered. Going to Western Shia, I and my dream maiden met in Western Shia's Lingzhou Palace's ice storage area. My dream maiden may perhaps be in Lingzhou. Third brother probably would not be willing to say where she lives. Maybe I should go and take a look at Western Shia. As he thought about this, Duan Yu said, Second brother, your Lingzhou Palace and Western Shia are in close proximity. As you're about to return, why not go and visit Western Shia? This sister, whose sword I do not know, apologies, you four look identical. I cannot tell the difference. This sister wants you to become the prince consort. Although it was a joke, but on thinking about the Mid-Autumn Festival, everyone heading to Lingzhou would definitely mean that it would be very lively and rowdy there. Elder brother, you need not hurry back to Nanjing. Let's go together to Western Shia and then visit Lingzhou Palace to taste Tianshan's Tong Lao's best aged wines. It would be truly a joy. It would truly be a joy to be drinking myself dead drunk with second brother in Lingzhou Palace. Translator note. Duan Yu's exhibiting some really sneaky cunning in manipulating them to head to Western Shia, where Wang Yuyan is. When Xiao Feng had arrived at Mount Shao, the 18 Khitan warriors had carried big skins of wine with them. However, the group was not with him, and he had not drunk wine for a long time. Upon hearing Duan Yu mention about tasting Lingzhou Palace's best brews, he could not help but smile in anticipation. Azu hurriedly said, Go, go, go. Brother-in-law, let's all go together. She knew that she would have to go with Suju to Lingzhou Palace to treat her eyes. However, without Xiao Feng's support, Suju may not necessarily be willing to treat her, and should his 4 sword sister underlings give her trouble, she would be all alone. She heard Xiao Feng pause without replying and thought, Brother-in-law's appearance is roughshod, but he is a delicate soul. It may be easier for me to ask him directly to get him to agree. She stood up and tugged a few times gently at Xiao Feng's sleeve, pleading, Brother-in-law, if you do not bring me to Lingzhou Palace, I will never see the light of day again. Hold on. Somehow I activated my Google Assistant. Get out. Xiao Feng thought, to return her sight would truly be a great matter. He then thought, while I commanded great respect in the great Liao, I had no close friends whom I could talk to. I have offended all the heroes of the Central Plains. If I could easily go with these 2 easygoing and magnanimous brothers of mine, even for a few days it would be a joy. Since I have located Azu, even if I returned to Nanjing now without anything to do, it would be extremely boring. He then said, Fine, second brother, third brother, let's make a visit to Western Shia, and later on to second brother's Lingzhou Palace to drink ourselves silly for days, as well as request that second brother treat Miss Duan's eyes. The group headed off on the road the next day. Suju returned to Shaolin Mountains' entrance to pay his respects. The first bow was to thank the Buddha for his blessings. The second was to thank the masters in Shaolin Temple for caring for him for the past 20 years. And the third bow was to bid farewell to the souls of his father, Sun Tzu, and his mother, Yi Niang. Arriving at the base of the mountain, the Lingzhou Palace servant girls harnessed up the donkey cart to allow Duan Yu and You Tanju a rest in the carriage. You Tanju was extremely dissatisfied, but he preferred to endure it silently rather than to part with Azu. As long as Azu occasionally pulled aside the doorway curtains to say a few words to him, he would be happy for half the day. However, it was just that Azu would ride on the horse, closely sticking to Xiaofeng all the time. You Tanju was upset about this, but dared not speak a word to her about it. Walking for 2 days, the Lingjiu Palace division slowly gathered. The Luantian division head delivered their report to Suju and Duanyu that they had already returned to the Junan king to inform him about Duanyu's recovery going well. The Junan king, who is Duan Zhengchun, was relieved and asked the Luantian division to tell Duanyu that he should return to Dali soon. The Luantian division girls also reported, Junan King's party has been heading to the northeast. Duan Yanqing and the crocodile deity, the divine croc, together with Yun Zhonghe, have been heading to the west. Both parties will not meet. Duanyu was delighted and gave thanks to the Luantian division girls. Zhongling asked Duanyu, if the king wants you to return to Dali soon, why is he going to the northeast instead? Duanyu smiled and did not reply. Azu laughed. Dad must be pulled by my mother and forbidden to return to Dali. Miss Zhong, if you want to seize my brother's heart, you need to learn from my mother. These couple of days, Duanyu had been thinking if he should explain that Zhongling was his sister. However, he felt that speaking of this matter would be extremely awkward and might hurt Zhongling's feelings, as well as reflect badly on his father's name. He decided not to speak of this for the time being. Zhongling knew that Duanyu wanted to go to Western Shia wholly because he wished to meet up with that Miss Wang. Seeing Duanyu on a daily basis, her heart was at peace, and she did not bother to think about how things might change after that. Azu's cold, spiteful words mattered little to her. Noontime was scorching during the hot summer. Luckily, it was a long way to the Mid-Autumn Festival. Most people made haste to travel in the early morning and the evenings, only covering 60 to 70 li a day before taking a rest. As the days steadily passed, Duanyu's injury healed quickly. Suju mended the bone of You Tanju's broken leg and splinted it with planks of wood. It looked like he had some hope of recovery. You Tanju spoke to no one. As Suju was treating his leg, he wore a bitter expression and said not a single word of thanks. The group arrived at Xianyang Road. Duanyu spoke about the historical areas of the Liu and Xiang conflicts and at the area to Xiaofeng and the group. Xiaofeng and Suju both had little education and were delighted by Duanyu's information. Suddenly, horse hooves steps rang out. There were 2 horses rushing over from the back. Xiaofeng had pulled their horses to the side to allow the rear guests to go ahead first. However, Azi blocked the road by herself. When the 2 horses had arrived almost beside her, she raised the horsewhip and went for the horse's head. The rider behind raised his own horsewhip to deflect Azu's and said, Master Duan, great hero Xiaofeng. Duanyu turned to look and saw that the man in front was Ba Tianxi, and the one behind was Zhu Danchen. Ba Tianxi hit Azu's horsewhip away and jumped down from the horse, with Zhu Danchen to kowtow to Duanyu. Duanyu hurriedly returned the greeting and asked, Is my father safe? He heard a shou sound. Azu had waved her horsewhip again to strike down at Ba Tianxi's head. Ba Tianxi had yet to get up and was still kneeling on the ground. As Azu's whip was striking, Ba Tianxi shifted to the side and caught the whip. Azu tried to pull it back with force, but could not budge it. She knew that her internal energy was not a match for her opponent. She waved her palm and thrust the handle of the whip straight for Ba Tianxi. Ba Tianxi was still angered at how she had angered Zhu Wanli to death, and originally wanted to teach her a lesson. He had not expected that even with her being blind, her movements were still swift, and the handle flew over at a high speed. He heard the rush of wind and hurriedly turned his head to avoid it. Although his head and face were untouched, with the pa sound, his shoulder had been hit. Duan Yu yelled, "Sister Zhu, you dare cause trouble again?" Azu replied, "Me? He wanted my whip. I just gave it to him, that's all." Ba Tianxi laughed and said, "Haha, many thanks, miss, for the whip." He stood up and took out a letter from his chest pocket, presenting it to Duan Yu with both hands. Duan Yu received it and took a look. He noticed that the letter was addressed to Son Yu, with the 3 words written in his father's handwriting. He hurriedly straightened his attire and respectfully opened the letter. It appeared that his father was instructing him to go to Western Shia to seek the princess's hand in marriage. The letter said, "My Dali kingdom in the south is a small country with a weak military and cannot expel external threats well. If we can become relatives with Western Shia, we would be stronger and better able to protect our people. This matter is of great national importance, and you must do your best." Ooh, Dad wants him to be the prince of Western Shia. Duan Yu finished reading the letter, and his face flushed between scarlet and white. He said, This. Ba Tianxi took out a large envelope. It was stamped with the large official seal of the Dali country king's younger brother, Zhunan General. He said, "This is His Majesty's personally written missive to the Western Shia Emperor requesting the marriage. Young master should kindly give this to the Western Shia Emperor after arriving at Lingjiu Palace." Azu laughed and said, "This is a father that truly knows his son well. Father heard that Mu Rongfu went to Western Shia and guessed that Miss Wang would also follow. His own son would naturally follow. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Does he think that the emotional woes of his son are more important than the country's matters? Why does he not return much after leaving for so long?" Ba Tianxi, Zhu Danchen, Duan Yu, on hearing Azu's voicing out such disrespectful words directed towards their father figure, and their expressions darkened. Although what she said had some truth to it, being his daughter, how could she speak ill of her father like that? Azu continued, "Brother, what did father write in his letter? Did he mention me?" Duan Yu replied, "Father does not know that you are currently with me." Azu replied, "Yes, he does not know. Did father not ask you to look? Did he ask you to plan how to take care of this blind younger sister of yours?" Duan Zhengchun's letter mentioned nothing of the sort. Duan Yu felt that he would hurt his sister's feelings if he spoke the truth, and he gave Ba Tianxi and Zhu Danchen a glance, trying to hint to them that they should admit that her father did order them to search for Azu. Who would have expected that the two of them did not understand his intention and did not play along? Zhu Danchen said, "The Zhunan king ordered the 2 of us to find young master to instruct him to seek Western Shia's princess's hand in marriage. If we return to Dali instead, even if his majesty did not blame us, we would not have the face to see anyone." The meaning conveyed was that Duan Zhengchun ordered them to find Duan Yu to become the Western Shia's prince consort at all costs. Duan Yu laughed bitterly and said, "I originally could not do martial arts and furthermore was badly injured and unable to access my internal energy. How could I compete with the great heroes of the world?" Ba Tianxi turned to look at Xiaofeng and Suju. Bowing deeply, he said, "Zhunan King ordered this lowly servant to greet Hero Xiao and Mr. Shu Zhu, and to request that in the name of your brotherhood to assist our young master. The Zhunan King also instructed to present gifts to the 2 of you, whom he knew in the chaos at Mount Shao." Saying this, he took out a carved jade lion and presented it to Xiao Feng with both hands. Zhu Danchen took out an ivory fan with Duan Zhengchun's calligraphy to present to Suzhu. Both recipients received their gifts with thanks and said, "This matter of third brothers we will naturally assist with all our ability. Why should we trouble Uncle Duan? We dare not covet these precious gifts." Azu said, "Do you think father is showing goodwill? He's asking the two of you not to compete with my brother in becoming the prince consort. My father is afraid that his precious son cannot defeat the both of you. By agreeing this way, you have fallen for my father's trap." Xiao Feng gave a small sigh and said, "Since when have I had the thought of marrying another, ever since your sister died?" Azu replied, "It's natural for you to say this, but who knows how your heart feels? Mr. Suzhu, you are loyal and honest, unlike my philandering and lecherous brother, leaving broken hearts everywhere. You have never formed any relationships with any girls. Would it not be perfect to marry the princess of Western Shia?" Suzhu turned scarlet and waved his hand hurriedly, saying, No, I am lacking and will naturally do my best to assist third brother in this matter." Ba Tianxi and Zhu Danchen glanced at each other and then paid their respects to Xiao Feng and Suzhu, saying, "Many thanks to both of you for your help." Words said in the martial world were hard to take back. Ba and Zhu hurriedly left, not because they were afraid of the two reneging on their words, but because they wanted to put more pressure on Duan Yu to accept. The group headed to the west, slowly getting closer to Lingzhou and meeting more Wulin warriors along the way. Although Western Shia was smaller than Great Liao and Great Song, it was a great country in the western frontier in its own right. The king of the time was addressed as Emperor Li Qianshun. He was also known as Zhong Shunwen, and the country enjoyed peace and prosperity during his reign. The Wulin person who married the Western Shia princess would enjoy great riches and benefits, was there a better deal in the world? The only issue was that most of the famous Wulin names were already married with children, while the new upstarts were not as skilled. There were a large number of senior heroes who brought their sons and disciples along to try their luck. There were also a number of bandits and members of various clans who came alone with high hopes. Many thought, "Perhaps if I have good affinity with the Western Shia princess, she may fall for me when she sees me, and I would have a chance to be the prince consort, even if my martial skills aren't the best." Along the way, the youths they saw were clad in fresh, bright clothing. Even their tools and weapons were in tip-top condition, as if they were off to some great competition. A common saying going around was that the poor studied literature while the rich studied martial arts. Those studying martial arts were mostly fairly well-to-do and frequently used money to offset their misconduct. The young martial artists heading to Western Shia were bedecked in their best finery in the hopes of obtaining the princess's favor. When these similar types of people met, they frequently jibed at each other and tried to obtain information about what the princess looked like, as well as tried to assess if the other party was a strong contender or not. If things didn't work out, they would treat the other party as an enemy. This day, Xiao Feng was going on his way when he suddenly heard the pounding of horse hooves and saw a horse headed their way. The rider's arm was in a white cloth sling and his clothes were tattered. He looked to be in dire straits. Xiao Feng thought that this person certainly did not fall, but was likely attacked by others, which was rather alarming. He did not expect that before long, another 3 horses came over with all the riders also badly injured, either with broken arms or legs. The 3 new riders had distraught and regretful expressions on their faces, passing by with heads bowed, not daring to look Xiao Feng in the eye. Plum Sword asked, Is there a fight going on in front? Why are so many people injured? As she spoke, another 2 people came along. These 2 were not on horseback, and their faces were covered with blood. One of them had a green cloth tied on his head, and blood was continually oozing out of it. Bamboo Sword asked, "Wait, do you want medication? How did you get injured?" That person glared ferociously at her and spat at her before slinking off. Chrysanthemum Sword was extremely angry and whipped out her long sword, wanting to hack at him. Suju shook his head and said, "Forget it. This person has been severely injured. You need not mind him." Orchid Sword said, "Sister Bamboo offered him medication out of good will, but he dared to be so insolent. It would be better to let him die of pain." At this moment, another 4 horses blazed towards them, 2 on either side. They could hear the riders on the horses having a great quarrel. Someone said, "It is all your fault for being a lascivious toad, lusting over swan meat. Without even considering your own abilities, you dare think of heading to Lingzhou to be the prince consort." Another person scolded, "If you had the skill, why don't you go for it for yourself? You lost and decided to take it out on me." The person on the other side said, "If you had not carried out a sneak attack, how would I have lost?" These 4 people were rushing past and speaking fast. It was unclear as to what they were quarreling about. In the blink of an eye, they were in front of the group. The 4 of them saw Xiao Feng's sizable party and did not dare to cause trouble. Hence, they pulled the horses to the sides and rushed on. However, they continued to squabble amongst themselves. From their dressing, it looked like the 4 intended to head to Lingzhou to be the prince consort. However, for some reason, the circumstances had changed, and they had to return home. Duanyu said, "Eldest brother, I think..." As the words left his mouth, another 2 people came along on foot, also covered with wounds from head to toe, one bleeding severely and one limping. Zhongling could not control her curiosity and drew her horse forward, asking, "Wait, are the people ahead at the pass very strong?" A middle-aged martial artist replied, "You're a girl, so they would not stop you from passing. It would be better for males to obediently turn back here." As he said this, Xiao Feng and Suju felt that it was very strange and decided to go ahead to take a look, urging their horses forward. As the group progressed 7 to 8 li ahead, they saw the curving mountain path heading upward. After turning several bends, they saw a dense group of people gathered. Xiao Feng pressed on and saw 2 towering men in the center of the mountain pass, each one taller than 6 feet. One held a large metal club in one hand, and one held a pair of copper hammers in both. They eyed the crowd ferociously. Gathered in front of both men were at least 17 or 18 men, all saying different things. Some said politely, "Excuse me, we are headed to Lingzhou. Please let us pass." Some said, "Are the 2 of you collecting road taxes? Do you want 1 silver tael or 2 each? If you state your price, we can work something out." Someone said, "If you don't move and irritate me, I will chop both of you to meat paste so fine. I will chop you both to meat paste so fine that it will be hard to keep you both back together. You better get out of the way to avoid a tragedy." Some said, "Both of you are imposing and grand. Why do you not head to Lingzhou and become the prince consort? Would it not be a waste if the beautiful princess selected someone else?" Despite the ongoing chatter, the 2 men ignored them all. Suddenly, someone in the crowd yelled, "Move it!" He waved his sword with a cold gleam and charged towards the man on the left. The towering man was large and his weapon was heavy. However, his movement was unexpectedly swift. He struck out with his twin hammers and trapped the sword. These 2 hammers weighed at least 40 jin each. With a loud dang sound, they shattered the longsword into more than 10 segments. The hammer user gave a kick at the man's lower abdomen. With a large shout, the man flew 7 to 8 zhang away and fell without further movement. The next moment, another man brandishing twin knives charged, the twin blades whirling in a flash of white light to defend his entire body. When he reached the two towering defenders, he gave a loud yell and switched to the D-tongue knife technique, rolling on the ground with twin knives stabbing towards their legs. The club user barely spared a glance as to the direction that the knives were coming from. He raised his metal club and struck violently at the blur of white light. With the "ah" sound, the second man's twin knives were broken, and the hilt of the knife was buried in his chest. He rolled down the hill. The two defenders had injured 2 people in a row, and the remaining people dared not approach. A sudden beating of hoof sounds was heard, and a donkey approached from around the mountain bend. On the donkey's back was a young scholar who looked no older than 18 or 19. He was dressed in a scholar's gown and wore an intelligent, cultured expression. His features were delicate and beautiful. As he rode his donkey past Xiaofeng and the others, the group felt that he was a world apart from the other Jianghu wanderers, and could not help but glance a few more times at him with curiosity. Duan Yu suddenly exclaimed, "Ah!" and said, You! The scholar never glanced at him, but proceeded to the front of the group. Zhongling asked in puzzlement, "Do you know him?" Duan Yu blushed and said, "No, I made a mistake. He is a man. How would I have recognized him?" Azu suddenly burst out laughing and said, "Brother, so it turns out that you only recognize ladies and not men." She paused and asked, "Is the person who just went past really a man? Clearly it's a woman." Duan Yu replied, "You say that he's actually a woman?" Azu replied, "Certainly. Her body has a strong fragrance. It's clearly a feminine scent." Duan Yu heard the word fragrance, and his heart started pounding. Perhaps it's really her? The scholar rode his donkey into the midst of the 2 tall men and demanded, "Move it!" As these words rang out, it was indeed the voice of a woman. Duan Yu's suspicions were confirmed and called out, "Miss Wu! Wan Qing! Sister, I. As he called out, he rode ahead. Suju called, "Third brother, be careful of your wound." We see Mu Wanqing again. He whipped his horse into action and rushed forward, along with Ba Tianxi and Zhu Danchen. And all his sisters are gathering together, I guess. The young scholar on the donkey's back stared at the 2 towering men and never once turned back. Ba Tianxi and Zhu Danchen, upon examining her profile, noted her feminine features and identified her to indeed be Mu Wanqing. The 2 men cursed themselves and silently thought, "How regretful. We have eyes to see, but are no match for a blind person." They did not know that Azu's hearing had sharpened beyond a normal person's, and that she had identified Mu Wanqing being a girl from her lingering fragrance. The group saw the young scholar in their midst, but had difficulty differentiating the scholar's gender. Duan Yu hurried to Mu Wanqing's side and placed his hand on her shoulder, gently saying, "Meizu, where have you been all this time? I pined greatly for you." Mu Wanqing dodged away from his hand and turned, asking coldly, "You thought of me? Why did you think of me? Did you really think of me?" Duan Yu was dumbfounded. He did not know how to answer these 3 lines of her. The defender with the club laughed heartily and said, "Fine. As you are a girl, I will let you pass." The hammer user said, "Girls can pass, but stinking men cannot. Wei, get back, get back." As he spoke, he pointed at Duan Yu and called out, "You little gigolo." What? "You little gigolo. It makes me angry just to see your face. If you take a single step forwards, I will certainly pound you into a pulp." Duan Yu retorted, "You must be mistaken. This is a road for all. Why can't I pass? Kindly explain." The defender replied, "The Tibetan king Zhongjing has decreed this pass will be sealed for 10 days and only reopened after the Mid-Autumn Festival. Before then, ladies may pass, but men cannot. Monks may pass, but lay people may not. Elderly may pass, but youth may not. The dead may pass, but the living may not. This is called 4 can pass, but 4 cannot." Duan Yu replied, "What kind of logic is that?" The defender shouted, "Reason? Reason? My copper hammer and his metal club are reason enough. King Zhongjing's words are reason enough. You are a man. If you are not a monk or an elderly, the only way you can pass is dead." Mu Wanqing angrily retorted, "Peh, who cares about your stinking rules?" With a wave of her right hand, 2 qi sounds were heard, and 2 small arrow points shot towards the 2 defenders. However, 2 beating sounds were heard, and the arrow points fell to the grass. The points had clearly shot into their chests, and yet the duo were unhurt. The defender with the club angrily bellowed, "Insolent girl! Why did you use concealed weapons?" Mu Wanqing got a great shock and thought, "These 2 must be wearing armor, that they did not die from my poisoned arrows." The club wielder struck a palm towards Mu Wanqing. He was extremely tall, such that even though Mu Wanqing was on the donkey's back, he could strike directly towards her chest with his height. Duan Yu called out, "Do not be disrespectful," and his left hand stretched out to block the strike. The defending warrior flipped his palm and grabbed Duan Yu's arm in a vice grip. The hammer user shouted, "Wonderful, wonderful! Brother is going to rip this young dandy into 2 pieces." He grabbed both hammers and used his right hand to pull hard on Duan Yu's wrist. Mu Wanqing urgently shouted, "Don't hurt my brother!" She shot out multiple darts, but the effect was like throwing stones into the sea. Although they impacted the bodies of the 2 warriors, they hardly dealt any damage. She wanted to shoot at the eyes of the duo, but Duan Yu was trapped between them, and she was afraid to injure him. Suju, Ba Tianqi, and Zhu Danchen were mounted on horses and unable to assist immediately. Suju blazed down from his horse and sped beside the club-wielding warrior, extending his finger to seal his acupoints. He instead heard Duan Yu laughing loudly and said, "Elder brother, do not be alarmed. They cannot hurt me." Duan Yu puzzledly asked, "Ai, how did you know?" Mu Wanqing replied, "My mother got the truth out of your dear father. I was with mother, and naturally heard all about father's matters." Duan Yu said, "So that's the case. You know that I wanted to go to Lingzhou, and then decided to come and take a look. Is that it?" Mu Wanqing's face blushed lightly. This statement of Duan Yu's was spot on. However, she was naturally inclined to replying harshly, and she said, "What would I be watching you for? I wanted to investigate the beauty methods of the Western Shia princess, but everything became so complicated." Duan Yu wanted to say, "If she were half as pretty as you are, it would already be quite remarkable." He then felt that this line was suitable for a lover, but not his younger sister. He stopped just before he spoke. Mu Wanqing said, "I also wanted to see if your Dali country's great Prince Duan would take on this matter of marriage." Duan Yu said in a subdued tone, "I will not become the Western Shia prince consort. Sister, keep this to yourself. If father wants to force me to do it, I will flee far away." Mu Wanqing said, "You dare defy father's orders?" Duan Yu said, "I'm not defying it. I'm escaping." Mu Wanqing laughed. "What is the difference there? Why do you not want the princess who has been brought up in the lap of luxury?" Ever since they had met, this was the first time she had laughed. Duan Yu was overjoyed and said, "Are you like father? falling in love with everyone as you meet them until eventually becoming inseparable? Mu Wanqing said, I don't see much difference between you and father. Looks like it's true that father and son are alike. It's just that you don't have father's good fortune. She sighed and said, like mother, she keeps saying how much she hates father. However, once she saw him, she was overjoyed and agreed to forgive everything. The young ladies of today are not as good as my mother. And that's it. Ooh. What is this? Well, let's not show that. Okay. Not much happening in this chapter. Okay, not much. They're all going to Western Shia. Yeah. And I think we have a suspicion as to who Suju's dream maiden is. So it's gonna be pretty interesting what happens. Looks like the next chapter is when they reach their destination. So yeah, it would be interesting. How did you guys like the chapter? Hold on. They're getting together for the action? Yeah. You know what I like? I like the three brothers together. Okay. They're traveling together. They want to drink together. Yeah. I just like it when they're together. It just feels good, you know? Yeah, like I said, it would be cool to have a whole story. Like a traveling adventure story of the three brothers. Where they right wrongs and drink a lot of wine. All right. Speaking of wine, I don't have any today. All right. But maybe for next week. Yeah. Well, I think that's it. Next chapter should be good. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. What happened to my sake? Well, I'm traveling now. I'm not at home. I'm out of town. I didn't bring my sake bottle with me. But hopefully next week I'll have something to drink. All right, guys. Yeah. Thanks for joining. Okay. I hope you guys join me next time when we reach Western Shia. All right. I love you, and I will see you next time. Bye.